A section of youth is raising its voice, calling on government to include them more holistically in matters of national importance. They say that despite the creation of leadership positions for youth in the legislature and local governments, their ideas remain overshadowed, and there appears to be a threshold age at which one is deemed useful in shaping the country's direction.
If you can give an example of the Parliament of Uganda, so many youth topics and bills have been fronted on the floor of Parliament, but all you see, these are, all generations coming and debating and giving their views. You have never heard the Honorable Speaker saying, let's hear from the MP representing Youth Central. Let us hear from such MP representing the youth to hear their views.
These young adults point to the low quality of education in Uganda, especially in rural areas, and the lack of clear mentorship structures from the current leadership as key contributors to graduate unemployment and other key sectors.
One time I was having a conversation with the executive director of UCC, and he was telling me in their times when they were still young, they had a lot of people that were mentoring them. That's why those days, like back then, 2000, 2004, a number of people that were taking up most of the spaces were young. They were in their 30s, early 30s, late 20s. But right now, the rate of mentorship has decreased. Why? Because someone will feel like if I mentor her, in the end, she'll come up and take up my seat.
Uganda's youth leadership spans 5 dedicated members of parliament and 9-member youth councils at every local level, forming a nationwide pipeline under the National Youth Council Act of 2024 as amended. However, these roles remain in the shadows and are highly politicized with limited tangible influence.
That's why I said we are just looked at as statistics, as numbers. We are just important in being mobilized for elections and voting for the senior members of this country.
Even when we participate in political parties or there are different structures that are just for the youth, so it does not reach the final decision-making bodies because of the barriers that we get along the way.
These young minds are calling on the youth under the age of 35 to equip themselves with vast amounts of data and knowledge about Uganda and other countries as they continue to challenge the status quo.
A useful youth is one that is informed. So one thing that the youth should do is to acquaint themselves with the knowledge that they need. If you are a youth in Uganda and you are barely concerned with what is happening in our country, you do not even know anything of the constitution, you do not know your rights, you do not know your duties as a citizen, then how then would you demand for a place at the table? Or how then would you advocate for what is best and suit for the youths in our country? So first things first, we need youths that need to move away from a chilled vibe.
With just 74 years remaining until the year 2100, which is the beginning of the 22nd century, Uganda has the potential to leverage its young population to transform into a first world nation. However, this will require increased levels of nationalism, readjustment of some priorities, deliberate youth inclusion, and robust governance structures to realize this dream. Wadulo Arnold Mark for UBC News.